Big Talk Podcast, Episode 3. I'm Alex Vayner.
And I'm Yoeli Doppelt.
Very excited. This week we have our first guest, fascinating guest, Rabbi Tom Meyer, a lecturer, an author, an internationally recognized expert in handwriting analysis. Rabbi Meyer had taught philosophy, Jewish philosophy and mysticism all over the world, from Capitol Hill to Bar-Ilan University. His expertise in handwriting analysis has been utilized for employment screening,
dating,
and
maybe I should be interviewing you.
Yes.
By the way, you didn't warn me how funny he was before we
That's true. We had about a 1 minute interaction prior to this call. So Rabbi Meyer had helped hire Fortune 500 executives, and he could tell us more about that. We're going to today dive into the fascinating science of handwriting analysis, witness its incredible capacity to help people make better decisions, and address the skepticism it faces from critics.
Yes, and I'm really curious, actually, to know, is this real?
Welcome, Rabbi Meyer. We're very excited to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about graphology and the Baum test, which is, you've been doing this for how many years?
And well, now you're going to know my age, but over 40 years.
Over 40 years. That makes you at least 41.
Yeah, well, right. I learned it in diapers, right?
Rabbi Meyer, you'll probably get this a lot, but is graphology an art or a science? And what is it to begin with?
Well, what is psychology? Is it an art or is it a science? If you got if you have a really good therapist, he still has to put the pieces together. There's always going to be art in it. And you telling me physics doesn't have art in it? Einstein and Niels Bohr were arguing about basics in physics totally because they had different perspectives. So everything has an art, but the handwriting is heavily reliant on intuition. There is a strong art aspect to it. And the reason is because there's a lot of principles, but you end up, like when I first started learning this, you end up looking at someone's handwriting and you got a list of 20 character traits that you see, but you can't figure out how it goes together. It takes a lot of experience of, there's contradictions. Look, he's got this, but he's got this. How does it work? So you've got to really be good in psychology, and you've got to be very creative and intuitive. And I know that my rabbi actually sent 10 people to learn this, and I was the only one who came out learning it. The other ones just couldn't do it. And one of them is a well-known psychologist. Because it's not an exact science, because you can see all these things, but it doesn't mean you really understand the person. So then there are critics that say, could you be wrong? But aren't therapists sometimes wrong? So it's like any profession. There are doctors. How come you go to 5 doctors and you can get 5 opinions? Because there's an art to that also. That means medicine isn't accurate. So the thing is, in Europe, you can't get too far without handwriting analysis. Also, the army in Israel, for high-ranking officers and jobs in Israel, very high percentage use handwriting. It's taught in universities in Israel. It's taught in universities in Germany, France, England, Switzerland. It's a center for it, but it never caught on really heavily in America. It really didn't, and I think the reason is that it's like people used to go to a carnival and somebody, come on, I'll do your handwriting. So it got a kind of attitude,
like palm reading.
Sort of. Well, palm reading's in the Zohar. Palm reading's accurate too.
Right, but I mean to say it got a reputation, something like
somebody started to teach me palm reading, and I just didn't like it because I gotta look at your dirty hands and you didn't cut your nail. It wasn't my thing.
You mentioned the word. You guys were using the word art versus science. You're referring to the interpretation aspect to something. What you're referring to as art.
Yeah. Yeah.
So scientists always need to interpret. There are many sciences that are softer than other sciences.
If there's no interpretation, how come Einstein and Niels Bohr argued about whether an electron is a particle or a wave? The most basic thing in physics. So anybody who says that physics is all fact and no interpretation in art knows nothing about physics.
Right.
Doesn't have a background, so it's not accurate. But some things require more intuition. But if you don't have intuition, you're not going to get very far in physics either.
we're very curious to learn more about the overall science, and we're going to jump in to that. However, I do want to warn our listeners today that we have a live experiment, if you will. Today, Rabbi Meyer is going to be reading Yoeli's handwriting. He's done this for me before, twice actually, and we could discuss that as well. One time was about a year ago, exactly a year ago, and when I was already married with 4 kids, and prior to that was when I was in my early
And
20s.
after the handwriting, he's divorced and nobody will talk to him. I'm just joking.
I just want to. He is a funny guy.
Disclaimers, yes.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment before you mentioned that it was a rabbi who encouraged a whole bunch of you and your colleagues to learn handwriting analysis. Many people wonder how like rabbinical theology views it. I personally have been by Rabbi Meir Shechter many years ago, more than once, who is one of like the most venerable scholars and
Leaders of the generation.
leaders living in Jerusalem.
First of all, Rabbi Nachman writes about graphology.
Right, and he's a Breslover.
And he's a Breslover. And second of all, people who go to the Ger Rebbe, I think there's 2 of them now, but anyway, people who go to the Ger Rebbe, at least the one in Israel, I know this for 100% fact because I have Ger
Clients
in my family. Not clients. I have my son get married into a Ger family. And the Ger Rebbe will send them to a graphologist. Yeah, go ahead.
The reputation of graphology in America, would you say over the last 30, 40 years since you've started, it's always been lower?
I was doing graphology for a company, and the guy's sister, the CEO's sister, was a headhunter, and she kept sending him handwritings, and clients, and he would ask for a sample, and then he would say, "I don't want this person," and she said, "What is this? I'm telling you the people are good," and he said, "Well, I'm sending it to a handwriting guy," and he says, "They're not." And she said, "I don't believe in this stuff." So he said, "I'm going to pay for you to have your handwriting done." So I got her handwriting, and then I was giving her the analysis in a car. I wasn't in the car. Her father was in the car. He was driving. She was getting it, and it was on speaker. And her father said to her, "I've been telling you this stuff for 10 years. You don't listen." So she said, "That's it. I want to go in business with you." I said, "Well, I don't, okay. I don't, like, what does that mean?" She said, I do headhunting for Microsoft and American Express. I said, "We're partners. Let's go." So she went into the human resource people. That's often who I have to deal with at Microsoft. And he said, "I know this works. I know it's true. But if we start using this, people will think we're weird and crazy. And who needs it?" So then she went to American Express, and he said the same thing. So I have some large companies. Often the easiest are, companies with 20, 30, 40 people, but I'm also doing it with large companies. But smaller companies are easy because they don't care about word get out, he used handwriting. They don't care.
Right.
So large companies are just nervous about it. But outside of that, I've never had any problems outside of Microsoft and just not being willing to do it. Now, people start out suspicious, skeptical, but I can tell you another story. I don't know how many stories before we get to Yoeli and after I finish with him, they come to take him to the funny farm.
But I think before the stories, we want to at least get an understanding, if the listeners here want to know what graphology does, what it analyzes.
Okay, fair enough.
And because this morning my wife asked me, like, aren't you afraid and intimidated about what he's going to see or say? And I said, frankly, at this point in my life, no.
Oh, now I know. Now I know why she called me up. I never met her, and she was threatening me. Now I got it. All right, let's start with you. He has psychopathic tendencies.
Okay.
Look, let me sum it up. I'll sum up what handwriting does. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I basically look. People are coming to you for different reasons. Sometimes should we hire this person? Sometimes it's somebody younger. What career should I get into? Somebody having trouble with a teenager.
What about a ransom note?
I'll tell you a couple of weird things. I've gotten very weird stalkers. I've gotten people they were famous Hollywood actress sent me she was being stalked. What do I do? But anyway, there's 11 things that I I give people, I assign a number to. 10 is the person's great, and 1 is, not good. Don't hire him, don't marry him. Look, I don't say don't marry. I say here's what could happen. Like, put it like that. But anyway, the 11 things are their work ethic, which I also include energy level, determination, will, strong will. Second one is imagination and creativity. The third one is intelligence, which is analytical skills, clear thinker, good planner. The fourth one is leadership and managerial skills, which in a marriage is important, running a home, etc. The fifth one is their judgment. Do they have good judgment? Are they cautious or reckless? The sixth one, are they a team player, or would they be nice as a husband or wife, pardon me? And that is, are they a good listener? Are they cooperative? Things like that. That's 6 I just gave you. The 7th one is implementer, working on projects. Some people are not good at that. Some people are.
Is that like execution?
Yeah, but it's not the same as completer, because some people are good executing, but they're not the completer. They're good along the way. But and then the next one is attention to detail, which is, are they thorough? They make waves. If you ask them to correct something, they can't handle it. Are they open to learning? Do they care about accuracy? That's 8. 9th is integrity. Are they honest? Do they cover up problems? Are they loyal? Which women want to know. Men don't ask if he's loyal. Women ask. Women want to know.
Yeah, I'm starting to get scared now.
Uh-oh. 10 is communication skills. Now, there's 2 types of communication aside from verbal and written. One is to do. To do means, pass the salt, mow the lawn. Can you get this report in on time? Pick this up at the grocery. That's to do. Some people are very good at that. The second one is to be, which is emotional intelligence and communication. Do I understand your emotions? Do I understand my emotions? And do I know how to communicate emotion, not just dropping intellectual letters, meaning that I can be vulnerable, I can communicate, etc. Or you would say empathetic, and because you said it before. And the 11th thing, are they a completer? Hands-on, they're responsible, high standards, they get the thing done. So I'm going through all 11 with people.
Okay, amazing. Rabbi, before we jump into Yoeli's, to you and to all of our listeners, I'm going to just ask our listeners to please subscribe. And maybe we could spend next 20 minutes diving into this very fascinating individual.
Don't tell me anything about him, by the way. I always tell people, don't tell me anything, because I don't want, first of all, because I'm right, which I usually am, not to sound arrogant, but if I'm right, it shocks people and it wins, it gets credibility. And second of all, it could prejudice me. I don't want to know anything about you.
Right. It's important to know that that we have never met before.
No.
And he has never heard. I mean, I've heard about you in the past, but you've never heard anything. You've never heard about me. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of regards from you later. I don't want to say it on air, but I have a whole bunch of regards to you from friends. Yeah.
That's nice. I hope most of them are out of prison by now.
Can I just tell our audience what it is that I have to do to prepare for this?
Yeah, sure.
So I was told to take 2 regular standard unlined papers, blank papers. On one of them, write in story form about my day, and on the other one, draw between 3 and 5 minutes, spend with a pencil and an eraser drawing a tree. That's all there is, and signing the bottom of both. So here goes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll start out with your work ethic. By the way, I always tell people you're allowed to disagree with me.
Yeah, I think I already disagree a little bit. So I'd like to point out something that, tell me if this matters. The first 25 years of my life, I spent.
No, don't tell me anything about. I don't want to know. Nope, I don't want to know anything about you. I don't want to
know. No, not about
me,
about the fact that I haven't been writing the last 20 years, but I haven't been using my handwriting for the last 15 years at all.
It's a common issue, but you sign checks?
Yes.
Well, you say you're writing. You have to fill out a form anywhere. Yeah, so you're writing.
But I feel like my handwriting didn't mature. I'm 42 years old, and I feel like my handwriting didn't mature in the last 20 years like it would have 2 decades ago. If I just Just the point that I have to
Look,
bring up. It's
here's
curious.
something I have to explain. We're composed of a spiritual side and a personality side. The spiritual side never changes. That's who you are. That's a core. You're born with it, and it's always there. It's the soul. But then you have experiences in your life, and that is another side of you. And I have to be able to get to the core of the person. And then you see what did they go through. So those things change. So even if you haven't written in 20 years, your handwriting doesn't mature. But the fact that you have gone through things in 20 years could change your handwriting. But the core of who you are is not going to change. But the core of what comes out can be. And you can think of it this way: a person, think of them as you're born, and there's a soul there, and then some light gets through in a certain way. So things can happen to you, and you block some of it, and you work on other things, and other types of light comes out. But it's still, the soul's the same, but the expression will be different.
Got it.
Something which therapists don't usually understand, because they don't. A lot of them don't know about the soul.
Right.
They're just dealing with, what's in front of them. Anyway, should we get started?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay, the first thing is your work ethic, and here's where it'll be interesting, and you're going to tell me maybe you disagree. You're not a crazy, obsessive-driven person. You're really a sensitive thinker. You have more of an artist's personality than a hardcore, tough businessman. You're a feeling person. So I would say like this: you are consistent. There's a certain consistency to you, to how you act, your behavior, your energy. There's a consistency, but it's not a really aggressive, tough. Like I don't remember Alex's handwriting, but I think as I remember it, and I don't remember it perfectly, I think he was much more tough and driven. You're more sensitive. It's a sensitive. So therefore, on a work ethic, I give you an 8. You're not an animal. Let's put it that way. There's a determination, but it's sensitive, more quiet, not really aggressive. But on the other hand, you're motivated. You want to accomplish. So that pushes you forward. But it's not tough, aggressive, like one of these ruthless business people. That's not you. You're more an artist type. So I give you an 8. And that gets us into imagination and creativity, the next one. And you are an imaginative, creative person. If you don't feel you're being creative, if you feel like you're suffocating, and the reason you're being driven in creativity is it's not just your own creativity. It's you want to give something to the world. You want to be creative in a way that changes people's lives. So that leaves you more intellectual, more spiritual, more of a thinker, more into ideas, meaning, and you're very intuitive. Yeah. You're independent, though. Nobody's going to control you. There's an independence there, but you're sensitive. Now, if somebody gives you rough criticism, you'll think about it for, 3 or 4 days. You're sensitive, but you will think about it because you're honest. You want to grow. I think that a very big part of your personality is a desire to grow, meaning and spirituality. And if you take that away, you're dead in the water. You would really suffer. You can handle routine work, but it's got to be leading to something meaningful. Or you'll just go crazy. You're laughing because I'm wrong, or you're laughing because I'm right.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's just meaning, if you're in a job that's 9 to 5, some people just, great, 9 to 5, here's the structure, go in. And you go 9 to 5, I go out of my mind. It's got to have meaning and purpose. You are driven. Your core drive is beauty, purpose, and meaning. That's your drive. It's not just get something done just because you're driven to make money, for instance. Money's nice, but it's not what drives you. Meaning is what drives you. Giving something drives you. 3, so I would give you on imagination, creativity, and I think you probably are frustrated with yourself because no matter what you do, you feel you're not doing enough. That's my guess. But I would give you an 8.5 to 9. I think it's a really central part of your life. Take that away from you, you're dead in the water. 3 is intelligence. Look, you're not a genius. No offense. You're not really brilliant. No offense. But you're smart. Alex is probably more street smart and shrewd and all that stuff than you. But you're smart. And again, Alex, I might be wrong. I did your handwriting a long
No,
time
you
ago.
can pull it up, and I.
No, he has enough time to analyze you again. You had your time.
Yeah,
It's
well,
my
that,
turn. It's my turn now.
there goes the payment just went up. Yeah, but anyway, look, you're not a highly analytical person, but you're a thinker. That's really what you are, and you like information, and you're a fairly good planner. But it's not in the worldly world. It's planner of creation, teaching, getting something out there. You're good planning that way. And in your own way, you're a problem solver. You probably have ideas of how to help people. That's what I think. Do you follow instructions? Yeah, if you like them. Otherwise, you go, oh man, how did I get into this? Get me out of here with this crazy person. You're not out. You're not. It's not a rebel streak. It's just you need to feel an independence and a creativity, and not you hate being controlled. You just don't want it. So if you got somebody really smart there's a certain level you will listen. Alex probably gives good advice in business or something like that, and you will listen that way. But again, it's going to end up being your creativity. I would not say Alex is not. But anyway, next is, so on intelligence, I give you an 8. You're not going to get low grades in it. If I wanted to really give a low grade, I would. I think the only low grade I would give is I think you're sensitive, and you're really sensitive. What am I going to say that's bad? It's almost a feminine trait. But anyway, I think you're sensitive, and you can be hurt. You can be hurt when you're not understood, or I mean, I think you've tried to build protection for that, but you're a very sensitive, kind, empathetic person. And so if you're expecting the world to be like that, good morning, they're not. Sorry. 4 is leadership and managerial skills. I wouldn't, what is a leader? A leader runs the company. So I don't exactly see you as a leader, because I'm getting caught in running a company and dealing with people's problems and the money, and I got to go to the bank and raise it and this and that. I think it would start driving you a little crazy. But I think you could manage people because you're understanding. You have a side of yourself that understands people and wants to help them grow. I think you could do that. But again, if you're managing people that want to listen and are kind and all that, because you're sensitive. So I'd say as a leader, I'd give you a 5 or 6. Don't want to hurt your feelings. As a manager, in the right place, I think you could manage 4 or 5 people in a creative way. And there I give you, in the right situation, an 8. Otherwise, you're back to a 4 or 5. Next is judgment. Well, your mind's always evaluating. You're always thinking and evaluating. But I wouldn't call you the most worldly person, but I think evaluating spiritually and people and stuff like that, I would say you're very good. I think you're basically cautious. You're probably cautious with money, because my guess is you don't know how to make a lot of it. So I would say you're cautious. Are you a strategic thinker? Yes. Spiritually. You could even probably do it in some ways in business if they were, business psychologists. What do you call those? There's a type of psychology there. Because I think you're good with people. Are you critical? Not in a nasty way. You want to understand. You want to help person. You're like you're somebody who wants to nurture. That's what I think. You're a nurturer. What's the name of it? Some kind of a way of ranking people. Like my wife does that stuff. I don't use any of that stuff because it'll prejudice me. But one of them is like a nurturer or something like that. You got a side like that. So I would give you on judgment. I wouldn't call you the most street smart person, but there's a practical decency to you that, like, if we do this to our kid, he'll be hurt. And when people are coming to you with problems, spiritual and all that, I think you'd probably be good. You'd be a good spiritual doctor. I think that's what I feel. So I think your judgment is good in that area. In business, I don't know how practical. I would go with Alex more. Okay. Yeah, now I'm going to get in trouble over here. All right, next is, so I would give you on judgment. In the right spot, I'd give you an 8. Look, you're a very good person. We'll get into that. But on the wrong spot, see, you'll just won't survive. You'll just get me out of here. So I could 6, 5. Are you a team player? You have many strengths because you're perceptive, I believe, of people's feelings and needs. You add to a team decency, kindness, caring. I believe you're cooperative as long as the people are making sense and they understand what you want and they're not and they're ethical and they just understand people and they're not. Then you're cooperative. But if you were in some organization and you feel, listen, you can't do this, you're gone. You'll leave. I'm not getting a hearing. I'm gone. I believe you're a good listener unless somebody says something where you just shut down and say, I got goodbye. I can't deal with this person. Are you diplomatic? You try to be, as long as people don't get on your nerves too big. But I don't think you're looking for confrontation, but you can get outraged. Like, how could you act like this? See, you're decent, and indecent behavior just outrages you. It outrages you. So as a team player, I think, like if you were teaching in a school, a yeshiva, if you wanted to risk your life doing that, or a high school, I think kids would really like you. I would like, I would have sent my kids to you. So as a team player that way, I would give you an 8.5. I think you'd be really good, but in the wrong spot. Some people can survive it, but I think I got to get out of here. It's crushing me. You'd be about a 4. Are you an implementer? That's number 7, working on projects. You really like projects because you like getting things done. You like turning plans into some kind of a practical way of probably helping people, doing something good. I think you're focused on your objectives when you know what you want. You don't like being all over the place. You like setting a project and being focused on it. I'd say you're organized, and you're not a bulldozer, but when you really want something, you can be, if the word's not relentless, it's the wrong word for you, but I would call it persistent, if you really care. So I think as an implementer, doing things you emotionally are invested in, I think you'll follow it through. I think I'd give you an 8 to 8.5. Next is attention to detail. Hold on a second. Let me see. Look, you're not obsessed with detail, but you know that you got to be accurate and you got to do it right, or whatever you're producing is junk. So it's not obsessive, but it's a determination to produce something that's quality. And you're aware of that. So it's not obsessive. It's got a purpose. Some people are obsessive. You're not. It's detail that has a purpose. You're open to learning from others. You'll meet reasonable deadlines, and you try to navigate through obstacles without making waves. You're not out for big waves unless somebody is really doing something destructive. So I'd say on attention to detail, I'll give you a 9. The integrity, you're a fine person. I'm not just saying that. If I thought you were a rat, I'd tell you. I speak really straight. You're honest. You mean well. You're loyal. Unless somebody's suffocating you, then you got to get out to save yourself. And I think you try to keep your word. And I think you're you have high moral standards. I give you a 9. Communication skills. Verbally, you're okay. You're good. Writing, I didn't read what you wrote here, but it looks like it's organized well. So I would say you're good. I'd say you're good. It's organized. But on this to be, are you really great at to do? You're okay. Again, you're not. That's why I said you're not a leader, and I think you could be a good manager, but you're not obsessed with it. So I think that your to do is probably a 7.5. If I was talking to your wife, she would probably say, "Oh, he could do better." But you do notice things that aren't working so well. But then you go, "Yeah, but I'm busy. What do I want to do? Do you want me to clean this and do that? Come on, you're eating up my time." But on the to be level, I think that you are good at reading people's feelings because you care about them. It's really important. You want to see people grow. I think that's your core drive. You want meaning and you want to help people grow. That's what I see it. You should be in a profession, whatever you're doing, maybe you'll tell me afterwards, that is oriented toward people growing. Otherwise, I think you'll be frustrated. I think you're good at recognizing people's feelings, and I think you understand your own feelings. You probably thought about yourself a lot because you want to grow. You can't help somebody else grow if you don't know how to grow. And in terms of sharing feelings, I think that you can do it, but you're vulnerable, so you're careful who you open up to because you can be hurt. You're sensitive. So you know how to do it, but you're careful. You're very careful, probably only to a few people. And probably if you are helping people, you're helping people, but they don't quite know who you are. You're talking from a safe place. But you do know how to open up, I would give you on a to B level 8.5. That's what you should be doing or whatever it is you do. 11, are you a completer? I would say that you you try to be hands-on doer, that's for sure. You have reasonably high standards, not extremely high, reasonably. I'd say you're a responsible person, but if I had to guess, and I'm not 100% sure, this is about the only thing I'm not 100% sure, but look at that signature, man. That is driven more than the rest of the handwriting. That, and there's a contradiction. When there's a contradiction between the handwriting and a signature, you have to ask who's the real person, because the handwriting itself is often what they project in the world, and the signature is this is who I am underneath it. But sometimes it can be reversed. So I think what you really are projecting into the world is a kind, sensitive person, and you are. But underneath it, there's a lot of drive that you have not, my guess is that you have not found a full expression to, and it frustrates you because you really want to do a lot, and you probably feel I'm just not doing what I could do. That's my guess. So I would give you as a completer, I would say you're a frustrated 7.5 to 8. That's all, folks.
All right, so long.
Okay, Rabbi, it was great speaking with you.
Now, first of all, before I reply, Alex knows we're really good friends for now. 6 years almost. 6 years almost since 2018.
Yeah.
How did overall? Because sometimes that please make me better at that.
No. First of all, I want to
That's me.
First of all, I'll say very much appreciate, Rabbi. I know that this was a request and this is what you would do anyway, but I just appreciate the direct and honest
I loved it.
feedback, because we live in 2024 now, and people just can't spell out something that's not perfect because everyone is so sensitive. And I'm sure you were considering Yoeli's sensitivities because you knew how sensitive he was to begin with.
Yeah, but he can take it. He can take
Yes, I
Yeah.
can.
You're not going to like cruelty, but he can take it because he wants honesty. He wants to grow.
Right. I think it's very, very accurate. I'm still kind of digesting it as well, because there's so much there to unpack. And I've known him for many years. I've seen him in leadership roles, but I do agree that I don't see him being a leader for like maybe the same reasons that I would be a leader or some other people. He wants to just make, like, in Torah we have the expression b'makom shenei anashim, like in the place when there's no man, you have to stand up and be the man.
That I agree with. He wants to do the right thing. That I would.
He'll be the person that if there's not men to do the job, he'll do it, and he's doing.
But it's not natural. It's because he wants to do the right thing.
Some people like the spotlight. He just does it because it's like, if I don't do it, nobody's doing it, so I'm just gonna do it, not even tell anyone.
No. He's a good person. That's the integrity. He's got values. He wants to do the right thing, but he's not a natural leader. He does what he has to do. I'll call it that.
So I'd love to now tell a little bit of a story, because I think everything can help get tied together, and I want your feedback how this all fits into each other. So I want to go all the way back when I was in grade school, middle school, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. Right away, when I saw certain troubles starting, where I remember the first one was probably in 5th grade, where people had to split up into groups to go collecting on Purim. I realized that a lot of fights are happening, and I'd get in there with a clipboard, and I interviewed each kid out of the 32 kids in my class, and compromised and pushed and pulled until everyone was happy. And I begged and bribed. And since then, I've done that all the years. I did it for rooms in camp.
You're a peacemaker. That's not exactly the same.
Right. No, I want to bring out a point. So this theme of that, it wasn't even the peacemaker. I believe it was the sensitivity that was behind everything, that didn't want to see the people around me fighting. I think sensitivity is the root here, which forced me into so many leadership positions. I am one of the most reluctant, well-to-do people in the world, which means I do well financially only because the way I built all the businesses that I built were always built around people and keeping them happy, keeping the clients happy.
That's it.
Drew all my clients to me with the honesty like a magnet. So,
That's not a real businessman. It's actually
right.
Exactly. You're in the helping profession. That's what you should be doing.
Exactly. So I for example, I still own a business in Israel called Yoeli's. It's a food business. It's a wholesale business, which also had retail for many years next to the Mir Yeshiva. And
I learned it. That's where I learned. I learned in the
yeah,
mirror.
but you learned it because you're 41. You learned in the mirror before. I started that business in 2005. And through the entire process of building that business up, I was a drug counselor and worked in a yeshiva and taught on the side, which took up so much of my time, the majority of my time, more than the business itself.
That's not a real businessman.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not a real businessman. I'm a peacemaker.
Right.
And I had many different life-changing.
Yoeli, you're a very fine person. You really are. I don't say that lightly. You're really a fine, spiritual, good person. You're a neshama.
Thank you. When I was in my upper 20s, I discovered a book that changed my life. It's called The Highly Sensitive Person. The author of that book ended up writing many, many books following up The Highly Sensitive Child, The Highly Sensitive Husband, The Highly Sensitive Businessman. But that book was the reason why it was so life-changing, because it validated my whole journey of I was always hard on myself, why I couldn't enjoy myself at a wedding if the music was too loud, or why it bothered me so much to be the peacemaker, where I would then pay money to two sides just to make sure that they're both happy.
Wow.
And tell this one that he's paying it and tell that one that he took it.
You're Aaron Cohen. Aaron
Right.
Cohen.
Right, but until I discovered the concept of 1 in 5 people being highly sensitive, nothing made sense in my life. And I think that is the key to your entire analysis of all the apparent contradictions, all fall into place with that very high sensitivity.
I would agree to that. I would agree with that.
If you see behind me, we're in a music room. So my whole life I play many instruments, and I'm finally, after many years, putting out a musical album, which I worked on for years on the side, which means a lot to me. I'm not allowed to talk about the details because my producer doesn't let. Now I do garbage and construction waste disposal, trucking and labor services for construction sites. That's what I've been doing the last 7 years full time.
You got to feed your family? I mean, why? Is that the bottom line?
I found a hole in the market. I realized there's a problem with the current system, and I went in there and found a way to fix it. We're a medium-sized business, but we run like a mom and pop, because I'm the peacemaker between the clients and me and my drivers and
I'll tell you why.
the laborers.
You're a mom and a pop. That's why.
Okay, Rama, that's excellent.
It says I have a feminine side, so I'm a mom and a pop.
Well, we knew that.
Okay.
I will say that it's extremely accurate, and
right. So the only thing is the people who know me are going to listen to the leaders. People are so used to seeing me as a leader for so many years. I've employed over 1,000 people in my lifetime.
Wow.
But those who know me well know that I'm a reluctant leader.
Yeah.
And money was always the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
And like even now, where I lead the services so often, it's only after we've exhausted the whole room, then I go to be a shliach tzibur. And I do it better than everybody else because
I'll tell you why, because you put your heart and soul into what you're doing. Look, I see the competency in there, but I just that you have all these people working for you. I would have just thought you would be crazy wanting to do that. You'd rather do other things.
No, it's true. You're right. That's why I got out of the food business. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what. You're so right about me not being able to do that. Is that on Matzah Tisha B'Av 2014, I had this moment where I pivoted from being the most sought after caterer and having 5 events every Shabbos, where I had to rely on 5 head waiters and hundreds of hot plates not to blow and dozens of waiters. And I said, I'm pivoting, no more events. And I went to wholesale only. And everybody around me said, you're crazy. And those are every change I made was for, like you said, I couldn't handle that noise that didn't make sense to me. If everything wasn't working towards a certain purpose, a certain peace of mind that will allow me to function, that brought me to later on get to the point where I say I'm the most reluctant, well-to-do person in the world, I think. And that's why I give away the majority of my earnings. I've always been giving away. It just doesn't, it's hard to describe, but that sensitivity um, is the only thing. I know I said this before, but that's what ties everything together. If you go through everything right now, you'll find every contradiction that either contradicts itself or contradicts reality. Will you find that extreme sensitivity that is the
You
holding
want
everything
to do
together?
good and help people. It's not about money and it's not about power. You just want to give.
Right. And that's why Alex observed. Alex has this mystery going on. Why during the beginning of COVID, we were learning together, and I went on this multi-month. It lasted probably around a year. I just lost my mind. I was in this crazed frenzy of what are they doing? They're harming people, and I wrote letters all day to every Congress,
No,
to every
it was a political control
right.
thing.
But
That's really
but
what it
I was so sensitive to it. I was hearing. I kept saying, I hear the children in India who don't have food crying. I hear them dying, and that was just my take on things. And every time when I have a client whose needs aren't met, and I know how it's going to affect him the next day because his tilers are coming and his floor isn't clean, that's what makes my business run so well. Is that desperation to please everyone and then talk to all the people on my teams and say, we got to help this person because that's what we're here to do in the marketplace. So I'm this reluctant leader, just like who made the camp rooms and the perm groups in when I was 10 and then when I was 17, and that never stopped.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, I have some questions. Why anytime Yoeli's trying to give an example, he's extremely dramatic? It's like it could be like a light example. If it's like, oh, there was a minor inconvenience. When he gives an
It's
example, it
passion.
just
He
sounds
puts
like
his heart and soul
yeah,
into things. It's just he's passionate. He feels things.
right.
That's the sensitivity. I can remember I said if somebody said something cruel to him, it could would stick with him for 3-4 days. He just did it.
3-4 years.
Rabbi, you've I don't want to go on a massive tangent, but you've analyzed my writing before, and you probably have access to it right now. If you are, would you be able to? I'm sure when it comes up when people are reaching out because they're looking to learn more about their potential marriage partner, or there are other cases that are common in the Jewish community, especially. Um, you're able to kind of cross-reference and understand the dynamic that people would have based on one's sample of writing with the tree and the other one's sample of writing with the tree. How would you describe this shidduch, this relationship here,
Compatibility.
this compatibility?
Well, you're an analytical person. You don't get as close to people. Your thing is you're goal oriented. You're a doer. You're sharp, street smart, tough. Not mean, but just tough, demanding. You can be mean. You've got that in there, but you know you shouldn't. Good thing you're religious. You're into get it done. There's 3 types of peoples: thinkers, feelers, and doers. He's more of a feeler and thinker, and you're a doer. Just get it done. It's not. It doesn't mean you don't think or anything, but you're a doer. That's your drive. Make things happen. Make things work. And his thing is, it's really, it says the world stands on 3 things: Torah, service, and acts of loving kindness. So Torah is the intellectual. So, but isn't service and loving kindness intellectual? No, it's obviously focused on a different aspect. So service is serving God. It's a doer. I want to get things done. And acts of loving kindness is helping people. So it's thinker, feeler, doer. It's Torah, God, spirituality, and feelings. Yours is just get things done. Now, you got to be into Torah. You know that. And on some level that you got to be really kind and nice, but you want to get things done. So how could you work together? You supplement each other. That's the treat, because he's feeling emotion and but let's make sure this is moving fast and getting it done and blah, blah, blah. He could do that because you got all 3 capacities. He does too, but it's not His thing is more, is it meaningful? Is it right? Is it good? Am I helping people? And yours is more costless. Get the thing done. So it's a good combination. I wouldn't, if I was,
When we were Chavrusas 4 years ago, he would always come get me. He would just come Friday night. I would be like falling asleep in my chair at the head of the table, and he would
he's
be
a
like,
totally driven, very, very driven. You're not as driven, even though you accomplished a lot. I mean, you told me how much you did. I was impressed, but he is driven. He's a more natural leader, if you don't mind me saying that. He's more natural.
I'm a
Yeah,
reluctant
he's
leader.
not. I think he would have trouble working for somebody else. He wants to build his own thing.
That's right. Very good. So, I mean, I obviously, you meet people, so you know what your dynamic is. And I know a lot more details, which I don't want to go into right now because it's going to be a distraction in terms of my own writing. But I definitely could relate 100% to this dynamic, and thank God it's been working great.
Well, you're both also ethical people. You both really want to do the right thing. You really do. You both have a very strong drive of ethical. Be ethical.
I wanna shift to the place where maybe the viewers would be very curious of how this is done. Maybe like some specific examples, like if we look at the writing.
If you look at his handwriting, the first thing you see is the lines are straight. A lot of people bounce around, and if you were to take a ruler and put it under each letter, you see there's a little bit of movement because he's not a obsessive person. Like if you look at the word switch, you see how the S goes slightly up to the W and then it goes later, but it's not dramatic. So when somebody has writing that straight, he's goal oriented. Now the next thing is there's 3 zones in handwriting, and think of it as the human body. The upper zone is like T's. T's are the upper zone, and L's, you see the word unnatural. The L goes high. Upper zone is spiritual. It can be power if it's an aggressive handwriting, but it is not as aggressive. His handwriting is rounded. It's not angular. Everything is rounded and soft. It's a soft handwriting. Now, people not know how to feel that, but it's not like, look at the ends on the word unnatural in the top line. You see how they're rounded at the top? If it was really angular at the top, like a sharp angular, or when somebody writes M, some people have it very sharp. That's more lawyer type person. But his is round. It's round there. The whole writing is a rounded, soft handwriting. So it's straight, which means he's got to have goals. And it's rounded, which means that's the kindness and the sensitivity. But there's 3 zones. The high letters of the T and the L are spiritual. That's the head. And spiritual, thoughtful. The middle letters are A's, E's, O's. You see all those? A's, E's, and O's. Go to but. B-U-C. See the U? That's a middle zone letter. So he has a middle zone. There's a lot of it is middle zone. He's got to kind of balance here. Middle zone is ego, relating to people, how you feel about yourself. So that's why, he could have talked another half hour. It's not megalomania. He really likes talking about himself. He is very important at the center of things, not out of ego, but feelings. Feelings are very important to him. The lower zone is like wise. So if you were to take a ruler and rule off, like, let's say the word actually, you see the line, but not all actually, you put right on the top of the A and C, and then below on the A and C, you'll see that the zones are almost equal in size. They're almost equal in size. It's like the A goes to the middle of the T, and the Y goes down, and if you were to have the line right across from the A all the way to the Y, and then right under the A all the way to the bottom of the Y, you'd see 3 zones in there. Thinker, feeler, doer. The lower zone is like the legs. So all 3 things are important to him, but I think the most important is the middle zones, feelings, because the whole handwriting is rounded. So that now we have, the next thing is margins. If you look at the margins on the left side, they're pretty straight. So because he's feeling, he's open-minded, but he's not radical. If lines move around a lot, he needs consistency. He doesn't like inconsistency. He likes creativity, but he likes a structure that isn't suffocating, but creates consistency. That's very important. If take away structure, he starts going nuts unless it's a creative structure that he's controlling. Now, if you look at the space between the words, they're not large. You have very large space between your words. Very, very large.
You as in me.
As in
Alex,
Alex.
yes.
look at the space between, let's say, at and time. It's like 7 letters because getting close to people is not that important to you. But his are, first of all, they're pretty even and they're kind of close, but they're not so close that they're like hitting. He does not want to step on people's, step on their privacy. He understands space and he wants space, but it's consistent and much closer because he cares about closeness to people, Next, it's all printed. It's not cursive. And the reason it is the letter connections are all separate, almost all, not all, but basically, that's independence. The more it's connected, it's hyperlogical. If the whole writing was connected, which yours is pretty connected, not totally, but it's very connected. You're much more logical than he is. He's not just logical. His is thinking and space and feelings but yours is hyperlogical.
I have a question to that because I do find in many conversations with Yoeli that he's very passionate about logic or things making sense.
That's because he has to feel them, not because it's intellectualism. It's truth and feeling. It's not the pure.
It's coming like from. Are you suggesting that it's coming like from a different place? Which I think it makes sense to me
From a truth perspective.
Yours is truth is important to you because you're honest, but yours is more. Is this going to work? Is this sensible? Is this practical? And his is this true? Is this accurate? Is this meaningful? It's different.
See, he answered during the question. You used the word passionate. You answered the question. He's talking about when something doesn't make sense, I get very excited and passionate or upset, where everything has to make sense.
That's because you're trying to understand everything, the world and all, so that you can help. You get the ideas. Yours is just come on, make things work. It's not yours. I'm not saying you're not smart, but yours is more. Is this going to work? Will this work right?
pragmatic.
Yeah, I would call it. I'm looking for a word. I'm forgetting word. Tactical.
Practical.
Tactical. You're a tactician.
Yeah, tactical.
Very good.
But remember, it's not 100. People are not 100% people. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to work together or communicate. You're spiritual in different ways. Your spirituality is this is. Look, people become religious for one of 3 reasons, or all 3. They either become religious because it's true, or because this is the only way things can work right. You can't have marriage, you can't have society. It just won't work. Or because this is the only way to be nice to people and kind to people. Yeah. So there's truth, there's practical, a thinker, feeler, doer again. So you're all 3 of you are people that have worked on themselves. So you have all 3, but Yoeli is more the feeling. And is this kind? Is this good? Is this make spiritual sense? And yours is it's almost more of an academic truth. Academic's the wrong word, but it's just more, is this practical? Will things work? If you don't do this, things don't work. And if you don't do this, people get hurt. It's not right. It bothers him emotionally. It bothers, but this is stupid. It's stupid. It just won't work.
Yeah.
He goes, it's wrong. You go, this is stupid.
Excellent. Maybe we could also, I think for our listeners, it's also understanding the difference between the tree, like what information is actually being extracted from the tree and what information is being extracted from.
The tree is more where you're at now. And the handwriting is more like a history of what you've been through. That's why I didn't want to look at all your earlier handwritings. If you look at his tree, look how he's thinking all the time and evaluating. But again, his purpose is to help people, to do good, kindness. But the energy is in the upper zone. That passion is in the upper zone. But look how rounded and soft it is. It's soft. Look at the trunk. You see how it goes up softly, and then he's got flowers in there. You don't have flowers. You just have this powerful.
What do I have? I don't
You
remember.
know. Yeah, well, there it is.
Oh my God.
You would
Oh,
go.
wow.
What do you think of flowers? Yeah, I'm not putting no flowers in there. But he does, because it's his, but yours is just raw power. Let me tell you like this: it would take a tornado to knock your tree down, but to knock his tree down, you just have to hurt his feeling. Oh my, it's soft. It's not. It's attached to the ground. Yours is not attached to the ground. It's sucking up the ground. If his is just attached there, it's like, yeah, you got to attach to the ground. You have to. That's because it's not the door as strong. You see, he put a ground there. He wants to be realistic, but yours is just, this is hugging the ground. It's power. It's, yeah,
Oh,
you see, it
wow.
hugs it. His just is attached. The line's just attached to the ground. They almost an afterthought. And then he's got his nice flowers, because even in doing flowers and nice and kindness, but look, he puts a lot of energy on the top. So when but it's soft again. So it's not like he doesn't think. When I say he's a feeler, it doesn't. But his mind's working all the time. Yours is not. You put him up there, but look how fast you're just like, the biggest power is in the trunk and its attachment to the ground. His biggest power is in the top part, which is ideas. It's Torah of kindness and helping people, and yours is you got to do a real tree, for goodness sake, but make sure it's attached to the ground. It's not gonna nobody's blowing me over, buddy. So the tree shows me, when I look at your tree, I feel power, but when I look at his tree, I feel sensitivity and kindness. That's what I feel. But thinking all the time, he is thinking.
Wow.
So that's the roundedness. The trunk is soft, and yours is just it would take a missile to knock that thing down. And then when the missile wouldn't rip it out of the ground, a missile would take. A missile hitting that tree, it's gone, man. Vamoosed. It's in another state. A missile hitting your tree, maybe it lopped off something, and you say, all right, so we're still here.
It's quite phenomenal that that these patterns are able to tell such a compelling story. And
the hand is really brain writing. The brain is transferred. It's interesting. When people are really highly introverted, their handwriting goes to the left. The angle goes to the left. So Yoeli's is pretty straight up, but a little bit to the left. A little bit. Take a look. Put Yoeli's on there, and you'll see the third line, like am. You see how the M goes to the left? That's because in your handwriting mostly goes to the right. So that's because a person that are sensitive, and Yoeli needs private time. He really needs private time. That's why being in business was driving him crazy. It was absorbing his mind. He needs private time. So there's an introverted side, and people can't know it consciously, but the more introverted they are, and he's not extreme because he does care about people, and he likes them. But your hand, without realizing it, starts going to the left because you're keeping things in terms of how you relate to people. Your handwriting goes to the left. The angle starts going to the left. Yours goes to the right because you're selling. You're out there. You like being out there. So your handwriting goes to the right, world. You want to be in the world. Yoeli is not sure if he wants to be in the world. He wants to because he wants to do good, but he doesn't want the world to absorb him because it starts making him crazy. Yours is, let's keep moving. Let's get it done.
Yeah, we have a case in point. If we have a Shalom Zacher Friday night, that we have to a 10, 15-minute walk, I only want to go if I can walk alone. Like, that's in my mind goes on. And Alex only wants to go if he can find somebody to walk with. So we're in the exact opposite end. But then I make an exception. If I walk with Alex, I'm okay with it. But most people just drain my energy.
Your energy because they'll talk about something smart and meaniful.
Meaningful.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Which is the case. That's why I let him in the way I did, which is why we're stuck with each other.
I hope it stays the same.
And that's why by the way, it's ironic, but it's also true, like how this podcast came about. we had a discussion, and Yoeli is like, okay, like, what do you want from me? And I was like, we gotta start a podcast. We gotta like talk about interesting ideas, have interesting guests. Let's just do it. He has been like pushing it off forever until I like almost forced him. I was like,
4 years.
yeah,
I hope you build it up into something big. That would be great.
amazing, Rabbi. I want to speak a little more on a few other broader
Yeah.
things, just to understand of how these things are taught, which is what I'm curious about as well. Is it that once you notice certain patterns, you could draw a conclusion about a specific quality?
I'll tell you how it is. That's why I was able to do it. And the other people that walked in, and one of them's a very well-known therapist, he couldn't do it. And the reason is, and this will sound weird, my mother had it too. My mother could walk down the street and start talking to somebody and feel them. Feel them. I have that ability, but I don't use it because it scares people. I feel that they're feeling invaded. If it's on a page, they feel, oh, I'm not connected to them personally. I'm just doing a page. But what they don't know is when I'm looking at the page, this will sound weird, I enter the handwriting. I enter it and I can feel what he went through writing it. I can feel it because I can find the emotions in myself. So you write something rounded and soft, I can find the rounded soft in myself. I go, if I did that, oh yeah, that means he's this. And if it's rooted to the ground, well, if I did that, it means this. I can find it in myself. So I enter the handwriting. It sounds weird to people. I never talk about it, but that's really what it is. I gestalt. It's a word in psychology where you feel the whole thing. I actually enter it.
People place a huge value to what you're saying and with your reputation when they come and they have questions or uncertainties, and that to me seems that it would create a very high level of responsibility. And I'm sure you're very careful in the way you.
When I get a handwriting, and I say I do not hire this person, I feel like I'm seriously affecting their life. Or I'll say to a girl, you can marry him, but here's the problem, and she may break it off because of that. Yes, I'm scared, and therefore there's a lot of people have wanted me to teach them, and I only was willing to teach one person, who I knew was a Tzaddik by nature. He's a family therapist, and I worked with him for a long time, and he's gotten pretty good, and now he's got a reputation, or he's starting to get a reputation, and I have not trusted anybody else. I don't trust people. It's a power that I would never want to give someone, and I've seen people misuse it. So yes, I worry about hurting people very, very, very much. But I do the best I possibly can. And when I give criticism, I usually, there's a Gemara that says if you give a piece of criticism and the person afterwards isn't smiling, you don't know how to give criticism. So I don't do that in regular life, unfortunately, but when I'm doing handwriting, I'm very sensitive. So if I tell somebody a weakness, I find a way to make sure they hear the positive. Push off with your left hand and bring them close with your right hand. So what you're saying is true. I worry a lot about it. Definitely.
On a more maybe a fun, positive note, I am curious if there are some really bizarre stories that took place of 40 years of your experience, and you probably faced them more, a lot. So maybe you could share some fascinating or really interesting stories.
Or the more sensational
Well,
ones.
I'm not going to tell you the name. I referred to it. There was a Hollywood actress who had a stalker, and so I've met actors and actresses and politicians. So she sent me, I think her agent sent me, he sent me her handwriting, and should I be scared? And I said, no, here's what the guy's going to do. He's a loudmouth moron, and you're going to give a press conference, and he may show up and interrupt you and yell something. But he's not going to get violent because he's too afraid he'll be in jail for 10 years. And he just wants attention. That's all that it. So if you don't mind that, you don't have to, you can sleep at night, but you may get some idiot showing up. You just got to know if you're doing an interview and there's going to be 50 people there, he may show up. But not, outside of that, no, he's not going to, the stalking was sending her emails and letters. It was not personally stalking. Another story. Here's how I got into it. I opened up a branch of Aish Torah in Washington, and I had a donor. He was one of my major donors, and I was learning with him. He wasn't religious, but he liked learning, and you want to keep in touch with your donor. So I would learn with him every week, and I would go to his office in his factory. So I go in there one day, and he's in a really crummy mood. We were learning Chumash together, in English. And I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "We don't know how to hire salespeople," which is one of the hardest things to analyze because they're different type of. There's a door-to-door salesman, and then there's the phone, and not easy. Or sophisticated medical equipment. He's not going door-to-door, obviously. So he says, "We don't know how to hire salespeople." And I said, "Okay, here's what you do. How many salespeople are in your building now?" He said, "Probably 10. So I call your secretary and have her go out and get 10 handwritings. I'll tell you what to do of all 10. And he said, "Why?" And I said, "I'm a graphologist." He said, "A graph what? What? I said, "I can read handwriting. I'm a handwriting analyst." He said, "Oh, yeah? Do you do voodoo too?" He said, "What do you think? I'm crazy? I don't believe in that." So I said, "Okay, open up the Chumash and let's learn. Open the Bible." He said, "Wait a minute." So he calls the woman in. And he tells her, "Go get these 10 handwritings." So we learn, and she brings them in after about the end of the hour, or close to it. And I look, and I made 3 piles. And I said, "Keep, fire today, because you'll never get it. And these people, you need the following training program." And I thought he was going to, his eyes almost popped out. He said, "That's exactly it." He said, "What do you charge?" And I said, "I never charged for this. I don't know. I didn't even realize it could be a business." So he said, this was 1989. He said, "I'll pay you $100. $100. So I said, "Oh, okay." So I went back. I finished. I went back to my office at H. And then I went home, and he had already couriered handwriting to me and had a check for $200. And I said, "Oh my goodness." And then I thought, wow, he said 100, but he sent me 200, so he must really value it. And why not? Okay. So he started telling it friends, and it started multiplying into a business. I then moved to Israel a few years later, and he came to Israel, and I had to tell him the story. And he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "If you had realized that I was ready to pay you $500. I go, "Oh my gosh, I'm underpaying myself." So I don't know how many stories do you need. What one girl got really angry at me. I said, "You got to break it off. This is never going to work." So she went to Rav in Jerusalem, and the Rav said, "Thank God." He said, "Listen, if Rabbi Meyer said it, break it off, And the only reason I said it is because I knew she was like really wanted to marry the guy, but the guy had no emotions whatsoever. It would have crashed. So she was very angry at me, but she went to this Rav, and he said the same thing as me. And then, so she broke it off, and then she met somebody else, and then she got married, and now she started telling all her sisters that they got to come to me. So there's that. You want more stories?
I want to hear more about perhaps hiring, or maybe cases where there was maybe some outrageous demands or something. I mean, you've seen so much, and I understand like there's the stories that tell the validity of it, and there's probably like really
A
fascinating.
guy sends me a handwriting. He has a business, a warehouse in California. And he sent me one that was repairing and selling computers. So he sent me a handwriting, and I said, you can't hire this guy. I don't like saying that. I like telling him here's what the dangers are. But I said, you can't, you'll end up with a lawsuit. And he checked up on the guy, and what the guy had done, he goes into a company, then he lifts something heavy, he says, "This wrecked my back," and he sues. So there was that one. And then I had another one. This was really funny. Guy in
But how did you see that in his handwriting?
thieves, sometimes you can't read it. Not because they're writing real fast, because they don't want you to. It's unconscious. You can't understand anything but the signature. You can't read it. It's all you see. Every letter you wrote, every letter was clear. Every letter. You don't want to. You're not trying to lie or anything. And some people, they write real fast. It's not that they're lying, but some people, you can just feel it. It's done in a way that you just know there's
Deceptive.
yeah, you
deceptive
just feel
writing.
deceptive writing. I used to give a handwriting class. I get asked to come to a business and do it, or yeshiva. That I get invited to do it because they see it as understanding people's growth. It's reflected even in how they write. And Benedict Arnold's handwriting, you can't read it. Benedict Arnold.
Who's Benedict?
Benedict Arnold was the first trader. He was an American trader during the Revolutionary War. You can't read it. You just can't read his handwriting. George Washington, "I'll never tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree." Totally readable handwriting. It is true. He was an honest person.
So what's up with those doctors with their prescription
They're hard
pads?
to read, but you just have to be really patient, and you know that they hate writing it, and they're just writing really fast. But if you're really patient, you'll find letters they express. But sometimes if they just do a quick signature, all I can see is aggressiveness versus patience. Because a roundedness and say he's not going to be the warmest doctor versus just really tough writing. But sometimes I'll say I need more. I can't do it. Sometimes I'll send it back and say that this is not what I asked for. That's why I say in business I'll say tell me your best experience you ever had in business or what you did during the day. I can't just do that. Signatures are often hard to read. Yours wasn't, but then you wrote it, you printed it out. But doctors, they're just and then they sign a fast thing. I won't do it.
What other famous figures, just out of curiosity, traits that you might have picked up, or something that, I mean, a lot of public figures have their writing published or available online, maybe from some things you've come across.
Broker bought a stock for me without asking me, and I went online and I looked at the CEO. I said, "Sell it today," and he said, "What? So what are you talking about? We just bought it." I said, "This guy's a crook. Sell it today." And it turned out that the company collapsed, and it's still there. This company had been on the New York Stock, the what do you call it? The Dow. No,
The
the
NASDAQ?
Dow, right from the
Dow.
beginning, and the company, they took it off. The company went from like 40 to 3 or something like that. He cooked the books. And once that comes out, the company collapsed, so they rebuilt it. But I said,
It's like Enron, FTX.
it wasn't that, but I don't want to name the company, but it's that
Sure,
kind of
that's
thing.
fine.
Yeah.
Rabbi, if you were to give our listeners 3 tips, 3 specific things that every person that without advanced knowledge could just like notice about their or someone else's handwriting, that would be a very telling sign of a specific quality, is there?
No, I won't do it because they'll start. It's not enough. A little information is a dangerous thing. They'll start thinking they can interpret it.
I've never formally studied it, but whenever I read somebody's handwriting, I always felt like I knew something about them, even though I couldn't put it into.
You're intuitive, but I'll tell you something interesting. I'll show handwriting to my wife because sometimes I don't get it right away. Sometimes I have to put it away for a day and look at it the next day. It's not going, And I'll show it to my wife. She doesn't have any idea how she knows any of it. I'll say, "Is this person X?" And she'll say, "Oh yeah." "Is this person Y?" "Yeah." "Is he Z?" That I'm not sure of. She doesn't even know. I'm asking the right question. It focused her, but she couldn't do it on her own. It's intuition. So you're looking at it and you're feeling something, but you don't know what questions to ask. See, whereas I'm looking at it and I'm going, "Is this person kind? Is this person this? Is it?" And then I'm looking at it and finding it in myself.
Right. I was just left with certain unnamed emotions when I read certain handwritings.
That's why the training is so important. Look, when I first learned this, our Mashgiach at Aish Torah sent me to Rabbi Lipschitz, who had been learned in the mirror, and he was a Mashgiach at Keren B'Yavna, and he did my handwriting. I think it blew me away with the first time I understood myself. I walked out of there going, it was the first time I understood myself. Because I have all 3 drives really strong, but totally didn't connect to each other. I have the drive to understand and wisdom and all that, but I couldn't connect it to being a doer at all. They were just totally disconnected, and he explained it, and I go, "Oh my God, I've never asked, okay, how do you get it from here to here? How do you get it from an idea into the application and then actually doing it?" You follow? Because I'm not a great doer. I'm a thinker and a feeler, and I'm not a great doer. So he explained all this. So that got me into it. Once he did that to me, I had to learn it.
How many different ways are there to learn if somebody wanted to study this?
How many people would you go to learn how to be a therapist? How many therapists would you really trust?
That's a good point.
There's very few people I would trust. You need a teacher. The books won't really do it. I can teach it, but I'm scared to do it with somebody unless I feel they're totally ethical.
And how long would it take if you found the right student? How long would it take you to teach them?
I can teach you the principles if we're learning it once a week, probably in 6 months. To get you really good, I mean, it could take a couple of years. Some people are just incredibly intuitive and smart, and they're going to get it faster. If you're hyper logical but not too intuitive, I wouldn't trust the person.
Rabbi, you're doing amazing things. We want to thank you for your time. We want to remind our listeners to please subscribe and to our channel. We're gonna have amazing guests, and we're very, very pleased with you making the time.
And I want to thank you for. It was very important for me to hear what you said to me. You're a good person, because I know I try, but we always
come
wonder,
on.
like,
How could you even have a second thought about it? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
that's because
Yeah,
I'm
but
sensitive.
in your case, it really is silly. You know you're a good.
But you know how it is. We demand so much from ourselves and about our motives.
You're
Always.
never going to be satisfied. I said you never feel you're doing enough to listen. I'm telling you, I don't know you. You're a fine mensch. You really are. That's the way it is. I say what I want to. I say what I want to say if I think the person can hear it. It was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it.